So we're transitioning into reviewing and editing. Okay, this is an important stage. When you create a map product, it would be a good idea to have someone else take a look at it. Um, if you can't, then you should take a look at it critically. Think about it. Does it work? Does it need to be changed? Um, can it work a little bit better if I do this to it? That's the kind of thing we're doing. The first draft of a paper is usually not what you turn in for grading. Hopefully, the first draft of a map should probably not be the one that makes it to publication. Okay, it should go through some sort of a review process and possibly editing and including revision. So, what do we do generally to review our draft map? Check for balance. Did you achieve visual hierarchy? If you can, print it to check the colors, to see if the colors are going to work the way you want. If it's going to be a color map, look for your spelling, your grammar, and details of the things that you're writing out in there. This is something that'll catch you all the time. ArcGIS does not have spell checking capabilities. So make sure, if you want to be taken seriously, that you've spelled everything properly. If you've done text entry on the maps, make sure that your city names are correct, your county names, your country names, whatever it is. If there's text on there, have someone take a look at it. And lastly, I haven't talked about this much yet, but here's a good point to remember. Um, did you name your data sources? Did that appear somewhere on your map in the marginalia, the information on the margins? So, like the author information, this would be a good place to put in. If your data source was primarily the USGS, you say data source from USGS, as you would see on other maps. But that's a good thing to put in there somewhere. If it doesn't make it on the map, it should make it into your notes about the map projection, your notes on the project, which in this class is your log. Where did you get that information? Pretty much the information you're going to get in the class that you're going to be using is going to come from me, from the web page. So you'll just be, you don't necessarily need to put that on the maps you're making for me. But when you're making a map for the public to consume, it's a good idea to put some indication on there. Where did that information come from that you processed to create the map? Okay, so this is just a general review, just like you might do for a paper. We want to see, does it work? And so a great way to do that is to give it to someone else and ask them, hey, can you take a look at this, please? Tell me, does it work? Do you understand it? Is there something that's unclear? Is there anything that you think that I could do to this to make it look a little bit better and especially easier to understand? A pretty map is one thing, but a map that you can understand is far more important. It's nice if it looks pretty, but it's more important that it works and it's comprehensible. So we want to review with that in mind. Again, checking your balance, hierarchy, colors, spelling, symbol locations, all of those types of things. Check it over at least once before you release it to someone else. And so here we have two slides that are basically an in-class exercise where we interactively go back and forth, and I grab people from the audience and ask them, what do you think? What works on this one? What doesn't work? What might you change? How does this look? Those kind of things. And basically apply that review process. Did we achieve map balance? Did we get a visual hierarchy? Is there an appropriate use of color? Is there appropriate use of symbols? How does it all work together or not? And we then compare it to this map, which is the same information depicted in a different way. And so we look at what makes this map work, what doesn't work about it, how did it achieve what it tried to achieve, what are the differences between these two. So we jump back and forth between them, which is harder to do in this kind of a lecture than it is in a live class. But we would go through and apply those same principles and look at it and think about it as a group and decide, is this a slightly better map than the other one, and what makes it a slightly better map if it is. Okay, and so this is something that I hope that you'll be able to do on your own. If not, try to find a friend somewhere, even send them a screenshot or something like that, and ask, what do you think about this map? Does it work? Does it really do what I think it's doing? And on this one, I'll just point out that there are some good differences, and there's a couple of errors on it. And I'll leave it to you to figure out what those couple of errors are if you jump back and forth between the slides, and see what what you might be able to detect. So to reiterate that point, it's a real good idea to have someone review your map for you. Ideally, someone familiar with your intended audience. What are their characteristics? Someone maybe in your field that understands your data and your analysis. If you can find one, a graphic designer. Or if you're working on something, you can always throw it off and ask me, my opinion. I'll tell you one way or the other. Unless it's something you're being graded on, like your practicals, your end product. I probably won't give you a full breakdown on that until I grade it. But if you're asking for advice, I can give you advice along the way. But it's a good idea to just have someone take a look at your work and make sure that it's doing what you think it's doing. Did you apply these principles of cartography? And there are more than what we've managed to get through in this class. I mean, there are entire textbooks on cartographic design techniques. And we teach a whole other class that focuses just on cartography at the University of Idaho. So there's a lot of information, a lot of things that you can do. But here we've hit on some of the fundamentals, and by using those fundamentals, you should be able to produce a fairly good-looking map that works pretty well at getting across the information you need to get across, whatever that is, to a general audience. Okay. And never be afraid to ask someone their opinion. Okay, just use it as a way to improve your own work, and know that they may not understand everything about the map, but they may give you some insight into it that helps you say, aha, maybe I could tweak that little thing and make it just a little bit easier for the folks to understand what I'm trying to get across. And that's the whole point of doing a review. You may need to change things. If your reviewer says, hey, I don't like this, it doesn't work, I'm not understanding it, then what can I do to make that easier to understand? Filter things out. Concentrate your message, which means maybe get rid of stuff that looks pretty, but if it's not necessary, throw it in the trash can. Turn that layer off in your table of contents and make it not part of the map. If it's not helping the understanding, if it's just there for aesthetics, but it distracts your map user, then it probably shouldn't be there. Always try to simplify things as much as you can, realistically and ethically, so that you're still portraying and focusing in on what is that core message, the core reason that you're making the map in the first place. What are you trying to depict? That's the critical thing that must get across. Okay. Don't be afraid to experiment. Don't be afraid to make mistakes. You've got to make mistakes, and you need to make mistakes in order to learn from them. You need to try and do things wrong, or do things maybe improperly, and then figure out, is there a better way to do it? Sometimes there may not be a correct or wrong way, but there may be inappropriate things that you can do to a map that makes it worse, that you can fix by changing them. Okay, and then testing under conditions of use means you're going to learn by making these things and then showing them to an audience. And in this class, ideally, show it to someone else before you show it to me. So if you have the ability to do it, if you have the opportunity to draw upon anyone, a roommate, a family member, a friend, someone that you knew back in high school, send them an email and tell them, hey, what do you think about this? Find someone else's opinion, get their review, get their feedback, and incorporate that into something, if you can, on the map, and then turn that one in. Okay, and then I'll give you my feedback on it, and then go from there. And that's what we all do in cartography. We're all learning all the time, and we try different things out. And when we get into new analytical techniques, we have to fall back on how are we going to display this information to someone else. And so we use the foundational principles in order to come up with new ways to visualize new analytical techniques and results. And we do that by trial and error, just like anyone else. Okay, so don't be afraid to do that. And then if you've applied everything, got a review in there, you're done, maybe. And you may go back and do it again. And like I said earlier on another slide, you're learning things at this point in time. You're learning how to handle data, how to manipulate it, how to analyze it. And now, after this chapter and this lecture, you're really focusing in on how to display it and how to communicate visually with other people. And that's something, it doesn't just end here. Like any other type of thing that you learn, you're going to learn more. And you're going to learn more through experience. You'll learn more through trainings. You'll learn more through doing readings in the academic literature and the professional literature and in technical publications like how-to books, things like that. Get cartography books. If you don't go any further in GIS work, I would recommend very highly that you obtain a copy of a book called How to Lie with Maps, and you get one of the standard cartography textbooks and learn from reading those. There are very good points to be made from that book, How to Lie with Maps. And any of the standard cartography books will give you more information than we've covered here. More detail about every topic that we've touched on and more. Okay, so it never ends. Cartography never ends, but it's cool. It's probably one of my favorite aspects of doing GIS and remote sensing work is then creating the map visualizations to communicate that information to other people.